Good morning, Park High School AP Human Geography students. This is Mr. Sharon, this is Mr. Starr. We're back with our second video. This one's going to cover chapters 5, the end of chapter 5, sections 3 and 4, right? Talking a little bit about language, right? So let's get into it. So we're going to talk a little bit about how languages are classified. Again, you've got family, which is the ancient people. You got branch, right? You got group, and then you have the language itself. Again, we look at over 100 language families. Do we really care about a lot of them? No. We really care about Indo-European, about 46%, and Sino-Tibetan because that's the Chinese languages, right? There's some other ones that we'll get into, Afro-Asiatic, Austronesian, and Niger-Congo. We're gonna cut through this and try to get to it as fast as possible. You have reading in the books, so you have a good understanding of kind of where they are. All right. So again, we'll look at Sino-Tibetan, right? These are going to be your Chinese languages. There is no single Chinese language. Mandarin is the largest dialect, right? There it is, clocking in at 845 million people, right? It's the most spoken language in the world, and it is the official language of the Chinese government and Taiwan by that reasoning, right? So keep in mind that the Chinese written languages is, Asian languages are made of characters instead of letters. Right, so we have this idea of ideograms and it's thousands of characters. So it's not an easy thing for Westerners to pick up on. Right, there's your look at an example of Chinese ideograms, just straight from your book. Right, basic characters. There's sun, there's person, stuff like that. Right, again, you can find this in your book. All right. Other languages we should look at: Afro-Asiatic, which is Arabic. Right, that's pretty important. Understanding that one. Altaic, which is your Central Asian languages in there. Keep in mind that they have 3 different alphabets. They have the Roman alphabet, which is one we're used to, right? They have Cyrillic, which is what you see in Eastern European Balto-Slavic languages, right? And then Arabic alphabet as well, right? And then the third one we're looking at is Uralic, right? Uralic is unique in that it is, besides Basque, it is these are non-Indo-European languages that have survived the time and space, right, and all sorts of history in Europe, right? So you have Estonia, Finland, and Hungary. Not a lot of things that they have in common, right? They're not they're not places that you would put together, but they have language patterns that are different from Indo-European languages. So that's pretty. That's unique. AP will pick up on things like that, right? So again, you compare the languages. We can move through that. You got Germanic on one side. You got Armenian and Albanian, and then you have Hungarian, which looks completely different than these other ones. You'll see, sound shifts and things like that, and similarities in these, but you will not see it in the other ones, right? There's the Arabic alphabet. Again, you'll see Arabic. It's pretty unique. You'll see that. You'll see a picture of Hebrew and Arabic later on in our religion and our language stuff. So, right, families, African language families, the ones you really got to know, the one you really got to know is Niger-Congo, right? And that's in sub-Saharan Africa. You're going to see the Bantu language. Swahili, right, is going to be a lingua franca, which we'll get into later on, right? You have the Nilo-Saharan, right, and then Koshin, or Hoshin, right, which is the clicking sounds that you'll hear, right? So you can, if you just type that in to a YouTube thing, you'll get plenty of clicks, right, that go with it. So they use the tongue click, right?
Extremely unique.
Just for a pop culture reference, right, Black Panther's Wakanda, right, is a branch of that one, all right? So there you have it.
There it is.
There's your Arabic, right? Remember, this is the Muslim world. You're going to be tying religion to this. You have your Niger-Congo, right, for the bulk of this as well. All right. When it comes to endangered or extinct languages, right? Keep in mind we got 11 languages that are over 100 million, and these are dominant forces. These are like pop culture. These are tidal wave languages that will sweep in and they will push out smaller tribal languages, right? And so people stop speaking the language, and when they stop speaking the language, it goes, then eventually it's only the old people who are speaking it, and those old people, they get old and they pass away, and all of a sudden you have nobody who speaks the language anymore. So languages become extinct at a frighteningly high rate, right? Once every 2 weeks, a language disappears from this earth, right? So again, we look at a majority being in Africa, but keep in mind that indigenous tribal languages in the United States are also very, very, very endangered, right? We use the example of an extinct language to come up with Gothic. The book will tell you more about Gothic. It disappears, right? Speakers are converted to more dominant languages, right? And then we look at, again, 300 languages are safe from extinction. But remember, there's almost 7,000 languages, right? And only 300 are safe from extinction. So the question is, how do you maintain a language? How do you foster that, right? Mr. Starr is going to tell you a little bit about that, right? Again, we look at our pictures and we look at sub-Saharan Africa as well, being there. But if you look around, we've got lots of India right along the Ganges, Indus River valleys, right? And there you see a ton of Southeast Asian. And then again, you're looking at indigenous people here and here as well, right? And their languages. All right, so what do you keep it to be preserved? Mr. Starr is going to take over from there. I'm going to nod and be his cohort.
So maybe the best example of a language that has been preserved or kind of revived from extinction is Hebrew, right? Obviously Hebrew is the religion or the language of Judaism, and it became kind of the official language in 1948 of the country of Israel when that was created or recreated again in 1948. And so at that point, going all the way back to the Christian Bible and Judaism, there was a lot of words that had never been created in Hebrew, and so that revived the language. They had to bring in new words, like the idea of what a taxi is, right, or car parks and things like that, or parking lots is what we're looking at here. So lots of new words were created, and it became the official language, and so that revived the language in Israel. We look at Celtic, same thing. Celtic was one that was kind of spoken in remote areas of Ireland and the United Kingdom, and then eventually became a little bit more included in other parts of the country as well. You can see it's in Irish, it's Scottish, Gaelic, Welsh, Cornish, Breton. All of these are different forms here when we look at it in the British Isles. And so the way they've revived these is the government has made it official languages in a lot of cases, or has made it a language of education, meaning they're teaching it more in schools and making sure that it's being used. We'll see it on TVs, road signs, in schools, obviously, like we just said. So it is being used much more and more to revive the language itself. There you go. There's an example of. So we have the English on there, obviously, and then you've got the Hebrew on there as well. And if you look closely,
there's Arabic.
Arabic as well.
Palestinians.
Yes. Green slide for you. We look at what is the connection between language and political organization. We're going to get way more into political geography in the next unit. But obviously there's a super high correlation between ethnicity and political organization and language. They all are tied together. And so when we look at that, Europe is a really good example of this. A lot of the political borders are cutoffs for different languages. Not all of them. We looked at Spain yesterday and said there's all kinds of languages throughout Spain. And but that creates political problems for the country. Creates organization problems. And we're going to look at more of those examples as we get into ethnic and political geography as well.
So again, you look at the Germans' border, right? And you look at World War I, right? World War I, when they changed the borders of Europe, they used language as the basis. They did not use religion as the basis. They did not use ethnicity as the basis. They used language, right? It is a major, right, concept, right?
So we're looking at just the borders again, languages of Europe. So you can see most of them, the borders do act as language barriers, but that's not always the case.
Right. You just keep in mind, then you have, you got your Balto-Slavic over here, you got your Germanic over here, you got your Romance language over here. Fits pretty nicely, doesn't it? Right? With a couple exceptions, you got your Basque, right? And you got your Britons who are doing some sort of language revision happening there, right? And then there's your Uralic right here. 1, 2, 3. Bam, there they are.
So we look at how languages affect multilingual countries. Obviously, we have some good examples of this. Belgium, they talked about in your book as well. They have two different major languages, French and Flemish. And the two regions, Wallonia and Flanders, are very semi-autonomous at this point. They don't really get along real well. Quite frankly, if they wanted to split up and become different countries, they probably would do that. Actually, they would like to do that. It's extremely expensive, something that's tough for them to do.
Their soccer would take a hit.
It would. And so that becomes an issue. It creates separatism in the country. People don't really get along real well. They don't really like the language barriers very well, and that creates issues. Switzerland has 4 official languages: French, Italian, German, and Romansh. And again, that creates a decentralized government. They have emphasized more local government over a centralized government, largely because of the language differences within their country itself. And then we know already about the idea of Canada, where you have French and English. About a quarter of all Canadians speak French, and most of those people are in Quebec. Outside of that, the government has, at this point, tried to make them become more, or I should say have less feelings of separatism by creating mandatory classes for people to take French in Canada. So most people are able to speak it throughout the country.
So if we were to rate these, give these a grade, right? These guys would fail, right? They're terrible. They don't get along at all. These guys would get an A, right? You got 4 languages. They let everybody be. They're not pushing it on anybody, right? And these guys, well, I don't know, B minus, C plus. What would you give them, Mr. Star?
Yeah, I'd say C probably.
Yeah.
C plus.
Right. Again, they're working hard to try to make sure that these two really separate entities, right, the Quebecois and then Greater Canada, are working harmoniously. But it's tough with language. Language, again, it can be a divider, right? Can bring people together too, right? Keep that in mind.
So the question is, could the United States ever be multilingual? I think we pretty much are multilingual.
In a lot of ways, yep. Mm-hmm.
So there's your example of Flanders and Wallonia when we talk about Belgium. Again, it's kind of your isogloss there, right? We see major difference boundaries here when we talk about languages here. Okay. There's a little bit more looking at the separatism, the fact that they don't get along here, multiple languages and the same advertisements here. Here's Switzerland, our A+ country. Again, they just kind of let everyone be with their own languages, and you can see kind of how they're divided up here.
And again, you see border, right? It's not a coincidence that the Italian-speaking Swiss are going to be near the Italian border, right? And you got the Germanic near Austria and Germany, which are both German-speaking, right? You got your French-speaking closer there. Right? Makes sense.
And so we look at isolated languages here. We talk about unrelated to other languages. There are some really good examples. We've talked about Basque a couple times already. Basque is in Spain, right here, the Basque region. The Basques are people that would actually like to no longer be part of Spain. They would like to create their own separate unit of political unit here. And so their language specifically is very isolated. It's in the Pyrenees Mountains here. It has nothing to do with the Indo-European language family.
Very unique.
It is completely unique. It is prior to that existing. All right. The other really good example is Icelandic language, and that is very unique as well. Here's one of your words right here. And so
it's Germanic, right? It's Indo-European,
but it's been isolated.
Yeah.
And so it's been created. It's kind of formed differently over time.
Think about where Iceland is. It's an island, right? Very isolated, very far away from everything, and so it does not, it doesn't converge, it doesn't diverge. It just kind of stays.
There's the Basque people again. They are looking to gain an autonomous government at some point. And again, we'll talk more about that when we get to our next unit. There's Icelandic language again. You can see the English and the Icelandic on the same sign here. Finally, lingua franca. When we look at lingua francas, these are languages that are spoken by all kinds of different people, and they're used to communicate with people that speak different languages. And so when we look at English today as the main global lingua franca. All right, we talk about global trade, air communications. Those are all done in English so that everyone across the world can understand what's going on in those positions.
Think about if the pilot doesn't understand English and air traffic control is speaking to them in English. They're in trouble, right? Everyone on that plane is in trouble. Everyone on the ground is in trouble. So, a bit of a language, communication. That's a lingua franca right there.
So when we look at English, it is global. There are some other ones, though, that we see is used commonly in East Africa. If people speak different languages, they will speak Swahili so that they can understand each other. We look at Hindi in South Asia, and that's spoken as a lingua franca as well, so people can understand each other. Russia in the former Soviet Union was spoken as well, actually forced upon the people. They had to speak
Russification.
And again, English is the most dominant in the world. Again, it's most developed countries around the world, they will speak English. In fact, when my wife went over and lived in Europe for a little while, people wouldn't speak German to her. She knew German, she spoke German, but they would always speak English. They just knew she was American, they would speak English to her. So people will speak English wherever you go if they don't. So there's your lingua francas.
There you go. Remember that, got that French happening over here, right? You're going to see Spanish being a big piece, Portuguese being a big piece, right? You look at Arabic across the Muslim world, right? You look at India as well, right? India, you will have, you'll have English, right, there as well because it was a British colony. You'll have Hindi as the lingua franca, and then they'll also, generally, a lot of Indians will speak then a third language, which is whatever their local language is. See that across Pakistan as well.
There's some other ones we look at. Again, the blue section here is people that speak it as their mother tongue, as they say, or their actual language that they speak regularly, and then the lingua franca speakers are the red. So you can see that English is the most commonly spoken language worldwide by everybody, followed fairly closely by Mandarin.
They just might not speak it as well, right, as native speakers.
Last couple things here we have, guys, looking at other languages affected by the spread of English, and so we get to the idea of Franglish or Spanglish or Denglish, and this is the idea of mixing French and English words or Spanish and English words or German and English words together, and so you'll hear things like entree at McDrive, right, and I speak Spanglish, ideas a week, and things like that. So you're just mixing the two languages together, and they have more about that in the book too.
These would be convergence zones. Just so you're going to see this in like the southwest part of the United States, right? Which is heavily Latinized compared to maybe up here. Sure.
There's some examples. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. So that wraps up Chapter 5 completely. Chapter 5 teaches you 3 and 4 for you today. So there are a couple videos on there, guys. Check those out if you have the opportunity to do that. And we will see you next time for Chapter 6. Take it easy.
Bye-bye.